drunk, are you ready to meet me? I'm lit and I'm riding the fast lane. Don't let me down, I'm on fire. Does anyone else feel like a liar?
And we just wanted to thank you so much for doing this
Aw.
interview because, oh my God, I don't like to have emotions.
Me
They're
either.
so ugly. But just
Ew.
being willing to speak with us and share your story with the listeners that we do have, it's just, it takes so much courage to me for you to be able to do that. And we're extremely
Yeah.
grateful.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here. Honestly, anytime anybody gives me a chance to share my experience,
Mhm.
strength, and hope and help someone else is just an honor to me as well. So thank you for having me.
We're very excited. And I know you get interviewed, and I'm obviously you're important. But I mean, like, you probably get the same questions all the time, I would think.
Yeah,
Is
sometimes.
there a question that no one ever seems to ask that you wish they would?
Oh my God, that's a good question. Let me think about that. One might pop in my head. I don't know
Mhm.
off the top of my head right now, but yeah, I love that question. So there you
All
go.
right.
That was a new one.
Yeah. Hey, if you don't think of an answer now, later on, you'll think of it, and then you'll be ready if somebody else ever asks. Okay.
But people haven't asked me, and if they did, I can't remember, but they always think like with sex and love addiction, you are going to like get over it. It's like a thing you get through and you get over it. And it's actually a part of your life forever. It's not
Right.
something you can, it's like trauma. Like it just stays with you, and
Mhm.
you have to, every day I have to work to not let those addictive tendencies take over.
I mean, it makes sense to me because it's like that with any addiction, no
Yeah.
matter what
Yeah.
it is. You always
Yeah,
have
but they
to
don't
work
think
at
because
it.
you're addicted to people, like, oh, well, if you learn how to have healthy relationships with people, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Or you get in a marriage, or you find someone that's like the love of your life,
Mhm.
and it's like, no, that has nothing to do with it.
No.
Actually, it's an internal job.
And it just has to be really challenging, especially because, of course, for a woman to be talking about it, there's usually all this stigma, of course, as we all know. If a guy does it, they're like, hey, good for him.
Yeah. Oh no, there's so much stigma. That's why I didn't talk about it for over a decade. That's why a lot in our women, especially, you cannot get them to talk about it because
Mhm.
it's so much stigma and shame. I mean, the love addiction women are more willing to talk about, but not the sex addiction part. And I always say that like sex addiction is, you use your sexuality as currency. So that could be in a marriage when you do something sexual to get your partner, you're manipulating and controlling your partner. So you can be a
Right.
sex addict and just be with one person. You don't have to like go out and sleep with a bunch of people. But yeah,
Right.
there is still a lot of stigma and shame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I really hope the more that this is discussed, that it removes that and women feel
I
more
hope
confident
so.
to come forward and discuss those challenges so that way we can all support and love each other. Because most people, let's face it, have some form of addiction, or there's addiction in my family, my daughter's dad, my late husband, like it's just everything. My mom's a gaslighter, and when you
Mine as well.
ugh,
I have many of
oh
those
my
in my
gosh,
family, and narcissists, and you're
totally.
just like, and martyrs, like put themselves on a cross. Like I have those.
You know what I sacrificed? Not much, man. I lived in that house. It wasn't that
Yeah.
fun. I'm not sure what you sacrificed, but it wasn't anything for me. Um, and there was even things when I was listening to your audiobook where it's like those lights go on where you're like, oh shit. Either
Yeah.
I know someone who does it, Or even like, I was thinking back, which sounds so nuts. You're gonna be like, oh, girl, 100 years ago. But like, even in like middle school and part of high school, you know, it would be a game, like to see if I could get
Yeah.
this boy to like me.
Yeah.
And I think about it now, I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. But I did it. I did it all
I
the
mean,
time.
everybody does it. Everybody does it. If you think about society,
Mhm.
everybody's always trying to get somebody else, trying to like find that person. And once they get them, they usually then are like, oh, that's it. That's the
Yeah, and it's
chase. And it's
like,
Mhm.
like
you're
that
boring.
constant. And I agree that everybody has an ism, even
Yeah.
if you don't come from an addictive family. Like
Yeah.
my family, when I did my generational, I looked down the line and I saw, alcohol, alcoholism with my great great grandfather. And every generation, it was like workaholism, overeating. And it went through different stages with different people.
Mhm.
And for me, it was sex and love addiction. So it's like, I mean, I talk to people now, people are addicted to Netflix, social
Yeah.
media,
Mm.
like porn is a huge one. That's a lot of problems
Yeah.
right now that, especially in my world, people are suffering so much, especially young boys are getting almost impotent. Like they don't feel their sexuality anymore because it's so desensitized. And
Yeah. That's
so,
so
yeah, I mean,
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
'Cause it's
oh,
like
it's
they're just
heartbreaking.
being robbed of something really beautiful,
Yeah.
and that's awful.
No, I'm telling you, and that is the reason I spoke out. That's the reason I wrote the HuffPost article. That's the
Mhm.
reason I wrote the book. Well, first of all, I don't ever feel like I wrote the book, but it was because this younger generation was coming in the rooms at 20, 21 saying, I cannot connect to another human being. I
Wow.
cannot use my sexuality. I feel so desensitized. And then young girls were coming in, trying to live up to this what society puts on them, look sexy, over sexualizing themselves
Mhm.
because it's what is it that like positive sexuality or owning your feminism, that huge movement, which I think it's great. Women should own their
Yeah,
sexuality. It's
but
ours. We can do what we want with it. But it's like now it's gone so far where you're giving it away when you're not keeping it safe because it is yours. Does that make
no, it
sense?
really
And it
does
starts so much
because,
younger
Yeah.
too now.
they do, and there
Very young.
there is, someone I know that's, near my daughter's age. So, she's like, I don't know, I wanna say, like,
How old's your
she's
daughter?
27.
Okay.
Yeah, and her husband's 31, and she's pregnant. First baby. I'm like, "Ooh." I'm excited, but then I'm like, "Ooh, grandma just makes me feel old." I have her on my Instagram, and PS, I suck at social media. Like, I rarely go on, I don't post things, I just don't care. It's
Yeah.
it's
Good
She's
for
the
you.
unicorn.
Keep it like that.
yeah, I just don't. So, but if you at any time you go on this girl's Instagram or her Instagram story, girl,
Mhm.
I I just wanna drive over to her house because it's not that far from where I live and tell her to
Mhm.
put some clothes on,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
I
Like,
I'm
we're
the
and
same,
I'm
yeah.
not like some freak show prude, that's not it. But I mean, it is I just look at her and I'm like, "Stop doing this. Stop it. What is wrong with
Yeah.
you?"
I know, I hear you, and that's why it's getting worse and worse. When I started 12 years ago, it was like you go into a room and I was the youngest one and there'd be like 30 people of all ethnicities, all generations, there would be like an A-list celebrity, a janitor,
Mhm.
a school teacher, and now I go in and there's like the rooms are huge, like 80, 100 people, and a lot of them are the young, over sexualized. Like we have to tell them to put on clothes because there's a lot of rules in the
Right?
Yeah.
rooms. You can't wear certain things, you can't say certain
Mhm.
things. It's pretty much the safest place in the world being in a sex and love addict room. Like honestly, like I would hands down rather hang in a room with a bunch of sex and love addicts in recovery than the real world because there's so many rules and you have to stick to them or they'll ask you to leave.
Right, and that's really important too, because then people feel safe.
Oh, it's the safest room in the world. Like, I rather hang out with my guy fellows than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, they are the safest people. I mean, it's like people knowing they've done wrong in their life and taking accountability for it are my favorite type of
Yeah.
people.
Well, yeah, because no one's perfect, but we just have
Yeah.
to own our shit. But people
Yeah, I
don't.
guess that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, like, but and you're right though. Not everybody wants to own their shit.
No, not, I would say very few. You know, people always do ask me about like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and all these people that have said they were sex addicts and that they went to, you know, but the thing is, I say they've taken no accountability. You know, it'd be different if Harvey Weinstein's, yeah, if he stood up and said, hey, listen, I use my power and my everything to get what I want from women, and I definitely need to make amends for this, and I sincerely apologize, and now I've hurt a lot of people. He's not one said that.
No.
So if he did come in the rooms and said that, I would forgive him because he's a fellow addict. But
Right.
I have no forgiveness for someone, or I try to have empathy, but sometimes it's hard when people don't own their own baggage. Like, we all have baggage.
Everybody
You can't
does.
carry it around right? You can't carry it around in this world and use it against people now.
No.
That's one of the
That's
lessons
terrible.
I've really taught
Jen,
my
do you want-
son is to own your mistakes. And it's ironic
Mhm.
because the other day I was on the phone with one of his counselors because he has ADHD. And every year we do it.
I do too.
I know. And every year, and one of the stories
Yeah.
you told made me relate to him. But his counselor
Mhm.
said that what they love about him is when it gets caught like daydreaming or not doing his work and they call him out on it, he always says, "You're not wrong," and takes accountability for it. He doesn't make an excuse. But what broke my heart in
Yeah.
I don't think it was even in your book. It might have been in the podcast interview that you did with your husband, and you told the story about how
Mhm.
your mother was crying when you didn't know your ABCs. And it set you up to feel like you
Yeah.
failed for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. Or not failed, but you know what I mean, where I'm trying to go with that, what you said.
Yeah, stupid.
Yeah.
I carried that shame that I was stupid or something was
And
wrong with
he
me.
feels that a lot of times.
Yeah,
I
it was
totally get
brutal.
that.
Yeah,
Believe me.
he because he was so
Yeah.
young that, and I owe him and he's so talented and so smart, and I'm constantly encouraging him because I'm like, look, you have ADHD, you think differently, but it doesn't mean you're stupid. You're far from it.
Yeah.
No.
You were gonna.
No, and I think, you know, that's also why I put it out there that I have ADHD, that I am a working actor, that I have to memorize dialogue, that I wrote a book and I couldn't even write a complete sentence in English class. But it took me a long time to realize like my brain works differently and I'm not stupid. It doesn't make me stupid because I twist my letters or I say, you know, 80, it says 86 and I say 68.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with my brain. And I also realize it just works faster than other people's. And sometimes it doesn't, it's so fast, it doesn't connect with my voice. So tell him to hang in
Yeah.
there. And the only thing I wish I would have said is I wish I would have told my mom how painful that
Yeah.
was. And then we could have had a dialogue.
Right.
So I didn't have to carry that around for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I if I could go back and change anything, that's what I would
I don't know
change.
if you're from the generation.
But you can't do that.
I know we're quite a bit older than you, but I don't know if it was still prevalent with your parents, where with our generation, we didn't talk about those issues. Like when I was in school, if you had ADHD or any of that,
Oh,
You were
no.
they
not allowed
shoved you
to
into a
talk about
classroom with
anything.
special people, and that was it. You never talked about it again. It wasn't like they had all the help that they do now.
No, I just got
Yeah.
drugs. I got like just Ritalin. I just got Ritalin shoved down my
Yeah.
throat. And then it would turn me into a zombie. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't feel good. And they're like, well, you need it. And it was just, so there was no discussion whatsoever. It was just like, here, take this. Something's wrong with you. You have to take this pill.
Do you because obviously since addiction runs in my family so prevalently, alcohol and drugs,
Mhm.
do you ever worry about your son picking up addiction habits
Are at that age.
and but
Mhm.
did they teach you anything in the groups to try to watch out with the children?
You know, we always think if you heal yourself, then you heal the family. So if I stick to my program, if I show up for a meeting every morning with my son's only 3.5, but I'm on a meeting every morning when I'm feeding him breakfast. He sees mama's meeting. I say the serenity prayer. He knows the serenity
Oh.
prayer. He loves to say say it with me. My husband is 33 years sober in AA. So we definitely come from addictive backgrounds, and we have had conversations like, the reason we're doing it is obviously for ourselves, for serenity and peace and being of service. But the main reason is we're being of service to our son. So we don't carry on that
Those cycles.
baggage that we had, like I'm not going to use my son to fix mom. And that was done to me, that emotional enmeshment, that codependency. Like, it is not my son's job to give me a hug to make me feel better.
Right.
It's not my son's, he gets to see, his father and I have healthy conversations. He gets to see us argue in a constructive way. He gets to see that our bond is more important, and we're there to serve him, and I don't own him, and I try never to do anything addictive in front of him. I don't overeat in front of him. I don't have inappropriate conversations. We don't, drink and do all that stuff. So hopefully the buck stops with us, but it's he has his own God, and if that's the path that God's going to have him go down, there's nothing I can do. I just have to keep my side of the street clean. So that's how we see it.
Right. No,
It
that
does.
makes sense. I mean, with my daughter, it just because her dad overdosed and died her senior year. So it was, I mean, she's never been a huge drinker. Definitely not into other things. She actually now, if and it started right after her dad died, she would tell, if you had to go to the emergency room or the doctor's office, she tells them she's allergic to pain meds because she doesn't even want
But-
them because of her dad
Well,
dying.
that's the thing, though. I didn't drink. I'm not a drinker. I've never done a drug. I didn't smoke pot until in my late 20s. I wasn't interested in that, but I definitely
not pregnant, obviously.
No, but I definitely I would hope not.
No.
I definitely turn to my addiction to people. You become addicted to relationships. You could become addicted to toxic relationships. For me, the addiction was I wanted power and control over everybody else because I felt so powerless inside. So my thing is you can become addicted to video games. You can become addicted to anything, honestly. Yeah, so we're keeping, video games away from our son. He's not going to have a cell phone. We're going to be really those uncool parents, and I'm actually okay with it.
No, my daughter.
I rather be uncool and him get mad at me than me contributing to him numbing out in life.
Well,
I want to allow my son to feel his feelings, not have to numb out, not to be overwhelmed by them. They should teach that in school. So a big thing that we do is how you get through a feeling. So we teach him, how to have a feeling, how to go through it, how to talk it out, not trying to fix it, not trying to make it better for him, not trying to solve all his problems. So,
well, just because they're small, they have big feelings. They just don't have the life experience to cope. Most adults
we don't even have the life.
Yeah,
what are you talking about? I know so many people that don't want to feel their feelings.
Oh, please.
I don't even like to feel my feelings. When I'm sad, I want to get out of it. And I'm like, no, just feel, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
This feeling won't kill you. But their feelings are out of control.
Yeah, they
just like us.
Seriously, I mean, I've been going to trauma therapy for a year now, and it's really helped because I had so many toxic people in my life that I just wouldn't have cut out before. I just stayed in the mess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you got to cut out those toxic people. I mean, those are the people that everybody thinks it's just toxic romance, but it's really family
Oh,
members.
mine
It's
was
really
family
friends. Those
members
are
and friends.
yeah,
That's who
I
mine
Yeah, me
was.
too.
yeah.
It wasn't a love
I had to
interest.
Those are the most difficult to cut out too. It's
Mhm.
like you go through this first separation. We call them qualifiers, the people that bring you into the rooms, which it's like usually a love interest. So
Mhm.
someone comes in because they're so heartbroken and suicidal and they want to go back to this toxic relationship, or they cheated on somebody
Mhm.
and now feel that feeling. So that you get rid of it, you go through that withdrawal. We call it a withdrawal, like you withdraw from that
Mhm.
person. And then that's when the real work comes. That's when you actually have to look at every single relationship in your life. And usually they're all toxic and they're all out of balance and unavailable. Because if you're picking unavailable people or you're using your sexuality, really it means you're unavailable. So it's like you have to turn in and look at you and who
Yeah.
you surround in
I-
your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and once you start cutting those toxic people out and having solid boundaries with them, it's amazing how quiet your mind gets.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's what boundaries does. We
It's
think
amazing.
boundaries are like boring, or I always thought when I was setting up boundaries with people that I was like, wait, my life, I can't flirt or intrigue. My life's going to be boring. I'm not having any drama.
Not
Like
gonna
I
have
have
any
to show
friends.
I'm like, I have to show up when I say I'm going to show up. I have to make amends for when I've done wrong
Yeah,
or somebody's done wrong to me. That sounds like the most like, boring existence, but it is like the most freeing and the
it
most
is.
is such a beautiful thing to have boundaries because it protects you and it protects the other person from you. Because me as an addict, I like to act out. I like to, manipulate, control, and, that's not a good thing.
You're like, game on. Let's do this.
Right? But that shit will kill you. And it almost killed me. There's some moments that I put myself in where and you saw in chapter 1, the dreaded confrontation with two
ATL and
AKA
I was
NYC.
wondering
ATL
if that
and
actually
NYC.
happened, and that was one of my questions, and I crossed it
Yeah.
off, and I was like, "No, probably maybe that one didn't happen." Yeah. Yeah.
You can ask me that. That one actually did happen. I usually don't tell people what happened and what doesn't happen because I
Yeah.
love them to like try to guess. But that one did happen. Yes, that
Yeah.
It's
was
rough.
not one of my finest
Yeah.
moments.
Did you have that revelation at that time? At that's when you hit your rock bottom, or was it later on? Yeah.
It was later on. Honestly, when I wrote the book, I wrote it like a long 45-minute share. I speak all over and I have these shares, and I wanted to make it where
Mhm.
you're reflecting back and you're looking at, so all my bottoms are kind of mixed together and
Mhm.
amplified. Some of them are amplified and some of them are put in different locations, but as a sex and love addict, you have so many moments where you're like, can I go this way and like choose the right thing, or can I go back and do the same thing over and over again? And majority of the time you go back and do the same thing.
Sure.
So that wasn't my
Yeah.
bottom.
I have a question. Would
Yeah.
you ever consider turning your book into a
Yeah.
movie?
Yes, I would. I actually wrote it like a
Yeah.
television show and a movie. When I was writing it, because being an actor, I'm so used to reading scripts and
Mhm.
that descriptiveness, and I pictured the character of Roxanne because when I was writing it, I first wrote it like a memoir. It was a pure memoir,
Mhm.
right? And I wrote it in 45 days. I literally just came through, and I've never wanted to write a book. You do not understand. Like my husband was like, I feel like you should take this
And you're like,
writing course. I'm like, what the fuck are you
I'd be
talking
like,
about?
bitch, I'd be like, you write the book. I'm busy.
I know. I was like, I was literally shooting Lucifer, and I was like, what? I have a job. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not.
Yeah.
And he just kept nagging me. And I was like, why are you? I said, I'm dyslexic. I can't even write a complete sentence. Why are you bothering me right now? I failed English. And he just kept doing it. And by the 6th time, he looked at me like very seriously and he said, listen, it's not that much money. It's 90 days. if you don't like it by the second class, you can quit and tell no one.
Mhm.
Like, no one has to know. Like, only I will know. Don't tell your sister because my sister's a writer, my dad's a writer, and all this
No
stuff.
Yeah.
pressure.
And I was like, yeah, right. I was like, okay, I won't tell any. So I finally said yes. So I wrote it in 45 days as a memoir. But then when I was doing the rewrites and working on it with my editor, all these other memories started coming back and other people's stories over the decade.
Mhm.
And my imagination as an actor and the voices started coming out, and I just like put it all in there, and it just became this other person. So when I was writing Roxanne, she wasn't me, but she was me, but she's so
Yeah.
many other people, you
Right.
know? And I would love it to be made into a movie or a television show
Mhm.
because I feel like there's been one show that talked about love addiction. It was called Love on Netflix, and it did not represent our community at all.
I'm
And our
sitting here
community
trying to think if I've watched it because I'm addicted to Netflix.
well,
I
yeah.
live
So they
alone.
only talk about it. They only talk about it once in the first episode, and it's a guy story. And I'm like, I'm so over guy stories, sex addicts. We got shame, we got Californication, we've got love, we got,
Yeah.
and it's just not a good representation of what this society looks like. And it's such a shame stigma that I'm like, let's break open the doors and like really show it what it is: the good, the
Yeah.
bad, the
Yeah.
ugly, the healing, then the downfalls too. I mean, I worked at a jails in downtown Los Angeles for 2.5 years. Every single woman in the jail was there for sex, love addiction. Like, she sold for her partner, she sold herself, she
Mhm.
prostituted. You know, I've had friends murdered over this addiction. I've had friends commit suicide.
Mhm.
So it's just, I just really, if we could get it on television, I think it would just even make a bigger splash and help
I
people
think it
agree.
heal.
I
would
agree.
because I think if it, yeah,
Thanks, guys.
because being
You could be my agent.
I've been
well,
saying that for a
because
while.
presenting it in that format is
You should be
No,
my
no,
agent.
the part about the movie. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I could wing it, you know.
Yeah, thank
but
you.
it could be such a non-threatening way to bring this for families
Yeah.
to watch and discuss
Yeah.
because just like with the book, there's pieces of your life you think about yourself, you're like, damn girl,
Yeah.
oof, that was not your finest
Mhm.
moment. And then there's other people you think about and you're like, they need to listen or read this, listen or read the book because yeah, they got a lot going on.
Well, if you think about, if
No,
anybody's
you go ahead.
listening,
No,
go
mine
ahead.
can wait.
Go
No, it's
ahead.
all right.
I cut you off. Sorry. No, but if no, if anybody's listening, but think about your friends. Like, how many get in toxic relationships over and over again? How many stay in bad relationships? How many keep going back to bad relationships or amplify the person they go out? How many go on DMs and try to like get the likes, the attention, the
Mhm.
validation? How many women and men use their sexuality to get what they want, to manipulate and control others? I mean, it is crazy that we do not talk about this. And every single one of my friends have had bad relationships with parents,
Mhm.
friendships, lovers. And that's what it's about. You take away a chemical addiction, there's a family issue. You take away the family issue, there's a relationships
Mhm.
across the board. And we just do not talk about it, especially from a woman's point of view. And that's, I hope it does. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Whatever God has planned is what I
Yeah,
always
I
say.
really hope it does because I think it could well, it's kind of like the increased dialogue there is now around mental
Mhm.
illness. It needs
Yeah.
to be to that same level with this because so many things are intertwined.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
struggling with one, you can end up with the other. Like it's just which in some cases, unfortunately, is like the perfect storm and is probably when someone does take their own life. So,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, my husband took his own life. So, it's just when people are struggling with different things, you just don't know where their
Mhm.
mind's going to end up.
And the number one reason if you lose your sobriety in another program is over relationships.
Mhm.
Relationships are the number one reason why people lose their time.
I can see that. Yeah.
That's so crazy to think about.
It's, yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
wow.
I've had friends that get in one relationship after another, and they're bad and they stay too long. And,
Mm-hmm.
like it would be, or their friends are friends. And I would think to myself, oh, they're the type of girl that can't be without a man, that they just have to have that constant companionship. But then in
Mm-hmm.
reading your book, it like the light goes off where, oh, that's what that is. It's something deeper than that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fear of being alone. It's a fear of intimacy. It's fear of not being worthy enough. So you're going back and like overlapping relationships or going from relationship to relationship to relationship to find your self-worth, to find love, when really you should never do that. You should pause. You should see, wait, what happened bad in my last relationship? Look at that. Go look at your character defects, what you brought into the relationship, who you chose. Look at who you chose, because normally that's a mirror for yourself. Everybody always likes to play the victim, but really you play a part in a bad relationship. You either put up with it, you didn't have stand up for yourself, you put up with bad behavior, you yourself did bad behavior and put your own character defects on someone else. And it's like people just keep going from relationship, bringing their baggage with them. And it's like, you are never going to get filled. There is nobody out there that is ever going to fix you, be perfect enough,
No.
be the ideal partner, be your soulmate. Like it just doesn't exist. And I'm just tired of that dialogue. Like all the songs, all the movies that saying like, go search for this person. You have to get married. It's just like, let's get over it already. Like it's not true. It's
No.
not going to fix you.
So I have a question, because I would be on the other end of that, where I became like sexually anorexic.
Oh yeah, that's a gnarly beast, the anorexia side of it. It's worse. It's harder than the other.
What do I do?
Well, that's your fear of intimacy. It truly is. You are shut down. And when I'm in my anorexia state, especially with my husband, we've been together almost 17 years, and it's like, I'm like, wait, no, sex is supposed to be dirty and wrong and a secret and like a high. Like I want to get high. Like give me the butterflies, give me the intensity, give me the passion,
forbidden,
give me the forbidden, the falling in love, like the first time touch, first kiss, first blah. And it's like, that does not last. And I never realized that.
Right.
So what happens is once it gets like comfortable and too close and intimate, I shut down sexually. And that's because I'm afraid of intimacy. It's too close. I feel too seen. It's too much work. It's like, it's not a high, it's a connection. And it's like, what do you mean you want to like stare into my eyes and us have a conversation and like cuddle afterwards? Like I do see I'm like crawling out my skin right now, but it's like
if you can go, that's great. But
like okay, high five, let's like see ya. But even when you're with someone and you have a bad relationship, then a lot of people turn sexually anorexic. They're like, it's too much work. It's too much intimacy. I got hurt too bad. I don't want to get abandoned again. And it's like, I'm right there with you. I can do it in a relationship and out of a relationship. But the sexual anorexia is the hardest part of the addiction to break. That one's the tough one.
So, yeah.
So what are you telling me?
Yeah. So what do I do from there? I mean, I'm talking to my therapist about it and stuff, but yeah, it's just bad.
You do the opposite of what you're comfortable with. So like if you have plans to go out or go on a date, you want to break those plans or not go, then you have to force yourself. It's almost like you have to push against your resistance to shut down or to isolate. We like to isolate as anorexics. And usually I know. I love being alone too. I'm like, why is my husband home?
I do too.
I love it. I feast on being alone and by myself. But here's the thing. We are humans and meant to connect to other people. And you do not learn being alone. You do not grow being alone. Yes, if you're going through pain and withdrawal from a bad relationship, you need to be alone to heal. But once you're through that, you have to connect to other human beings. So the first thing I say for people with sexual anorexia is like, you have to lean into the uncomfortability. It's really hard. Like you have to lean in when you want to lean out.
Oh my gosh. Is there a cord?
I know,
I'll
it's
wrap it around
torture.
my neck.
Torture. No, it's true. No one talks about how horrible the sexual anorexia, because underneath, honestly, after almost 12 years, underneath this addiction, every sex and love addict, every person that goes out there and has one night stands, swiping left and right, going back to toxic relationships, masturbating, going to porn, going from relationship to relationship like I did, cheating on their partners, always looking outside of themselves. Underneath all that acting out behavior is a sexual anorexic, that they're actually afraid of intimacy. Like they don't want to be seen.
I'm like, damn, I have to publicly acknowledge this. Like I typically do, but
I know. It's not fun, but here's the thing. Now you know, and once you know, you can do better.
yeah. Oh my God.
Look at her. If you could see her face right now, you're like, yeah.
Like,
Well, it was.
ew, this seems
I
like
don't
a lot
want
of
to.
work.
It is.
I know.
Told me. She said that she relayed this to her. She said,
Mhm.
she said to me, you're the female Jerry Maguire. You're great at friendship, but you suck at intimacy. And yeah. And that's the truth. It's the truth with me too. I am the best friend in the world to anybody, but my
Well,
husband,
good. We're all in it
he
together.
probably thinks I'm the worst wife because I'm just so cold sometimes.
Yeah, and it's underneath, and when I turn cold, it's because underneath I'm afraid to be seen. I don't feel like I'm worthy enough. I don't feel like I'm really worthy of anybody's unconditional love. I'm scared of being abandoned. I'm scared of intimacy, and it's just overwhelming. And I think when you come from a background of addiction where you can't, people don't show up for you, the basic people don't show up for you, you go into survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, the last thing you want to do is be intimate with someone and show your like heart and your rawness. So I shut down, but that kills me. It will kill me if I shut down. It will kill me if my son turns and he's like, I don't want to play with you, mommy. Like he did that the other day. And every ounce of me just wanted to put on that mask of like, fine. Fuck you, little boy. Like I had that thought, like, I gave you life.
Make your own.
What do you mean you don't want to play with me? Right? But it's like, that's my anorexia. He just hurt my feelings. He hit that core where I don't think I'm worthy of love or being shown up for. So he hit that button, but every ounce of me not to turn anorexic, I had to like lean into, no, you love more. You love more. Oh, you're closing down. You're cold. No, open. Go open. Go, like you lean into opening up, staying open. So that's like one of the main tools.
That's going to be so rough.
Good luck with that.
It's rough. It's rough. But it's the best because I feel everything.
Right.
I'm not numb anymore. And that's the thing, Dr. Kath, you numb one emotion, you numb all emotions.
Yeah.
You don't get to decide if you feel happiness, but you don't want to feel sad or disappointment or, you numb everything. And that's how I lived for so long.
And, it's like I've worked through so many different feelings, but just when it comes to that real intimacy piece with another person, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Close for business.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin, as you saw. I mean, I had to do like an intimacy exercise with my husband, and we had to like hug, and I couldn't like crawl out of the hug. And it couldn't turn sexual or anything. We had to like hug with no clothes on, and it was just so uncomfortable just to be held without like, manufacturing or putting on a show or playing a role. And it's just was those things are so uncomfortable, and I get it. I get it. If anybody out there is struggling in a long-term relationship, having that sexuality, not using it,
Yeah.
on and off.
And I mean, we consider you like a Renaissance woman because you're a wife, a mother, um, actress, director, producer, writer, you're all these things. But what do you feel like really is your biggest passion, or do you really have one?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. Honestly, if I could answer that, it's probably being of service to other people that are suffering with this disease. That actually fills my soul, where I feel the most in my skin, that I'm connecting with one other person and helping them get out of their deadly patterns and
Right.
not live years and years and years in this disease. It's going and being of service and sharing that journey. That's where I feel my most like in myself.
Yeah, probably the
Yeah.
most authentic.
Yeah, because for so many years I had a mask, and then I became an actor and I had on more masks
Right?
and makeup
And
and
then
outfits.
and then you're professionally trained and paid to just fool
Yeah.
people, and just be this whole other person.
Yeah. I mean, I told you in the book, Dr. Kath, my therapist in the book, was
Mm.
like, you picked the worst profession for your
Right?
career.
Oh my
You live in
God.
fantasy and you become other people. And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And she's like, you are literally hollow. I was
Right.
hollow.
And you're like, well, this is my moneymaker. You want to get paid on
Yeah.
the next session?
But until I was in too much pain and
Yeah.
I couldn't do the moneymaker anymore. I couldn't keep putting on those masks. And it was like, okay, either you're going to feel like this the rest of your life and be chasing this thing you'll never get, or you have to do the work. And I was willing to let go of being an actor, and
Yeah.
all that stuff I wrote about, hitting my rock bottom with the withdrawal, all that stuff is real. Like, I had moments where I was like, okay, take
Yeah.
away being an actor.
Yeah.
I didn't work for the first year of my recovery.
And that
Yeah,
had
it
to
was
be
tough.
really
Yeah.
hard too.
Oh yeah, it was like a whole person dying and a whole
Yeah.
fantasy dying and a whole thing like, this career will fix me, and it's like, no, the
Mm-mm.
money doesn't fix you, the job doesn't fix you, the clothes, everything, nothing fixed you on the outside. Nothing will ever fix. And that's why, I spoke out too as an act, as a working actor. Like,
Mhm.
you can want this thing, this followers on Instagram, this job in television, people admiring you, and it means nothing if you're empty inside. It
Yeah.
means
But
absolutely
obviously, with
nothing.
as much service as you
Well,
give
because
to everybody and how passionate you are, you're not you are hiding that emptiness because you obviously have so much love for all of the people that you help, and being of service, that's just, it shows that the disease makes you like bury that almost for protection.
Oh yeah. Well, because people terrify me. People actually terrify me, and I have to like see someone. I always talk about the compare and despair. Chapter 7. It's
Mhm.
like I have to be better than or less than somebody, and majority of the time I was less than. And it's like, no, now I just see people as they're just humans, just like me, and they're just struggling. And when I can have empathy and compassion and help someone else,
Mhm.
that helps me stay sober. Every time I help someone, every time I answer a DM, every time I do
Mhm.
an interview or write an article, I am doing it to help someone else,
Yeah.
for me to stay sober.
Right.
Honestly, because when I help someone else, then that goes, okay, I help someone else. I'm okay. Like, I can be of service. Then that helps me stay sober every time with my clients, or, one of my sponsees, or
Mhm.
just even going on set and talking to somebody going through a bad breakup.
Mhm.
Anytime I'm of service outside of myself is the best place for me to be, because
Yeah.
I'll go into ego. I'll go into ego thinking it has to do with me, and it
I do that
doesn't.
quite a bit.
I love
Yeah,
your
me too.
honesty. As you can tell, we're
Yeah.
very honest.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I really do because I mean, Jenny and I were talking the other day. It was about some celebrities or something, and I'm like, she's a sex and love addict.
Mhm. Oh
And
yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, now I just sound all judgy, But then at the same time, you want to tell that person, look, you keep bouncing around. You need to love yourself because you're just not putting a man down for a millisecond.
Yeah, no, believe me, this industry I live in is like littered with sex and love addicts. First of all, there's a lot in the rooms that I'm in, but like I've helped a lot. But yeah, this industry just breeds wanting that attention, that outside validation, the someone to love you unconditionally, all that over and over again. And it's like I have friends that are A-list people, and I'm like, she's got it. You got to stop. You got to stop. You have to be alone. You have to heal. You can't keep going from person to person thinking they're going to be the one to complete you. I'm just so over
Yeah.
that narrative, you know?
Well, because if you're not comfortable in your own skin and like yourself, why the hell is anybody else going to? Like, no one's going to fix you.
No. And then they'll go to like shopping. And I'm like, the shopping ain't going to fix you. That new house is not going to fix you. That new Bentley is not going to fix you. Getting pregnant is not
Oh,
going to fix
God,
you.
no.
Getting a boob job is not going to fix you. You know,
Yeah.
like, so I'm just glad to be on the other side of it and that I'm not doing that. But I also then get to hold up a mirror and say, hey, there's like hope on the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah.
Come if you want, but if you don't, that's okay too. That's your choice. So
Mhm.
it's always giving people the choice. Like, here's what I have. Here's the experience I have. You can take it or leave it, but I'll still be here
Right.
if you want to
And
ever
people
get
reading
help.
your story can see that.
Yeah. And that just means Mhm.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, definitely. Because when we were talking the other day, that was one of the things we were discussing was just we could tell the importance you felt about being of service to others.
Yeah. It's everything to me.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's everything. And that's the book and the podcast is about being of service to others. I didn't write the book for me. I didn't even want to write the book. Like I said, I feel like it was my God or higher power wrote the book, and it was like, this book has nothing to do with me. It's to help other people that are suffering, that don't understand it and don't understand what this disease looks like and how it manifests. And hopefully it helps people. I mean, that's the only reason I wrote it.
Jenny and I know about your podcast, The Secret, but would you like to tell the listeners we do have a little bit about it? 'Cause it is
Yeah.
really,
Good.
really good.
Thanks.
It is.
Thank you. Yeah, it's called Secret Life Podcast or Secret Life. And it's, I did it after I wrote the article for HuffPost. And I remember, and I say this really specifically, I remember the morning HuffPost article was coming out, and it was me saying, hey, I'm a sex and love addict in recovery. And I kid you not, at 9 a.m. when it was coming out, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? What am I doing? I ruined my career. I'm never going to work again.
Yes.
Everybody that hires me is going to think I'm like some sex crave maniac, like trying to like
hustle the
ruin
scene.
them, So I panicked. And then what happened 2 hours later? Nothing happened. It was such a humbling experience. I was like, okay, lady, like, get over yourself. Like, no one cares. Literally nothing happened. But here's what happened. Something did happen. That last bit of stigma and shame that I didn't realize I was carrying around for after 10 years, because it was right after I got my 10-year chip, just vanished. It was like I became my full self, like all the warts, all the flaws, just saying, here it is into the world. You can judge me. I don't care.
You don't matter.
You can throw rocks at me. You can call me a whore. You can call me like I use my looks, whatever you want to say. Or I wish I met her when she was in her disease. All that stuff.
Gross.
Yes, but it was like it just rolled off my back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so okay inside. You can say anything to me and it's okay. And that's what happened. But then that week it hit 2 million people downloaded the article.
Oh my
and read it.
gosh, that's amazing. What a great
And
platform.
Yeah. And then all these people all over the world started reaching out to me saying, I did that. My girlfriend did that. My dad did that. My cousin, thank you I've never heard of this. I did the 40 questions. Like, I'm going to a meeting. all these people started reaching out to me. And what happened? Then the world shut down with the pandemic. 3 days later, the world shut
Of
down.
course it did.
Yeah. And I woke up a month later and I had this thing at 3 a.m. and I said, Secret Life Podcast. I allow other people to come on and share that last bit of secret that they've held from the past or they still have in the present. They can change their names anonymous. They can tell me who they are. And so I got a mic and I interviewed a friend and I interviewed my husband to see if I even wanted to do it. And then I got 125 interviews in a matter of like a month, all over anonymous. Majority of them are anonymous. So it's my first anonymous one is Kristen's episode. And she shot herself in the chest with a shotgun because she couldn't reach perfectionism. And she walks me through after she shot herself in the chest and what that felt like and all that. So that was the first one. And it was just that moment of like, oh my God, this is bigger than me.
Yeah.
And people all over the world started just writing me their secrets, asking to come on, and I changed their names. And so we've had like, using abortion as a form of birth control, stealing food from Jeff Bezos at Whole Foods. We've had people coming out stories. One of the hardest one was this woman in the Midwest. Her OBGYN sexually assaulted her after she gave birth to her son. Right after. So it's like really dark secrets. And then it's some really funny ones at the same time. So I'm really proud of it. It's, we have some celebrities come on. Olivia Munn came on, Cheryl Burke and Robert Gann and Janet. We've had big people come on, but I really like the ones where they're anonymous and they just spill out everything they bad done or thought, so
because it's so much more raw. Like I have listened to some of your episodes. I want to say probably like 4 because I was hyper focused on the book and listened to it twice because you know how we get. So, but it is interesting because like there are so many things that you think about and you're like, oh my God, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. That's what I try to do. And my whole motto is tell me your secret and I'll tell you mine. So every episode I try to reveal something about myself so they don't feel like they're the only ones telling. And it's just two people connecting on a raw, authentic level. And there's no judgment. Because I always say, listen, you haven't done anything I haven't thought about doing, almost did, fantasized about doing. So you can't tell me I've either heard it, done it, almost did it, or someone I knew do it because I've just been in recovery for so long. So it's just one of the best things I've ever done. And we've released 67 episodes so far and we have 74 in the can still.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you do like block recording, like block scheduling your energy? What? Sorry, am I not supposed to ask that?
No, you can totally.
She can edit it out. But like, do you block schedule interviews so that way you can like get a whole bunch of them done? Like,
well, just when I started recording, I just the world shut down. So I just put it out there. I blasted it. And then I was doing 5, sometimes 4 to 5 interviews in a day.
Wow.
So I was just getting them done because I knew if the world's opened up, I'd get busy again. And then I'm glad I did it like that because I started having to edit the book and getting it, doing that whole process. That's like torture. And then the audio book was like the worst. It was like,
I bet trying to record that thing, I bet you're like, if I have to reread this one more time, everyone
I'm dyslexic. Right? Even though I read it, I'm still dyslexic and reading out loud is uncomfortable.
Right.
And then it's like, wait, I have to read all these deepest, darkest secrets in front of a sound guy that doesn't know me. And I'm talking like, it gets really sexual.
Yeah.
When I was reading, I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I wrote that.
Yeah,
like the threesome one.
and then
there's like the
I laughed at my
vagina
desk
gate.
at that one. I was in my office. I work for a CPA.
Yeah.
And I was like with my ear pods and literally laughing. And if anyone saw me on the cameras, they're going to want to not know what I was laughing at.
I'm serious.
Somebody the other day told me she was in Target buying diapers while listening to chapter 8, the threesome. She was like worried people were hearing like in the diapers. It just That was the best chapter to write. But could you imagine reading that
No.
out loud in front of like
No.
some guys,
No.
just like
No.
all the worst things you've done, said, and like put yourself in? It was just torture. I'm pure torture.
It has
for
to be
2 weeks.
because
Pure torture.
I know sometimes even on our podcast where we're like airing all our stuff, like afterwards, I'm like, dear Lord, baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
What did I just say?
yeah, but the whole thing is it's honestly unfiltered. Well, I have to be my authentic self. Like, I can't just pick and choose. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind,
I hear.
I can.
Believe me, I hear you.
You know, because like then if I'm picking and choosing, I'm just a fraud. But yeah, after
No, I agree. It was bad. But here's the thing, my husband was like, so now we have to do the audiobook because he's like, produce everything with me. And I go, what? Excuse me? What are you talking about? And I literally, and he goes, yeah. And they were all like, yeah, the author reads the book. And I said, can't we hire an actor?
Yeah.
And my husband looked at me and he goes, you're an actor. I was like,
but I don't want to be hired.
yeah, I said, but I didn't write it thinking I would have to read it and record it in my own voice.
Right.
Like this was not.
It's not like you can have a secret identity.
You know what I mean? Like I was so like, that's how much I didn't know I was writing the book for it to actually be published and put out the world. Like I had no clue that I was then going to have to like record it.
Yeah, right? That makes sense though, because then it's like, okay, well, this is some next level shit I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah. So that's how it is. But I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad that I put it out there because if it helps one person, which I already have heard it has, it's meant everything to me. It's just like that. It made it worth it. Every hardship, the best thing was my mom read it.
Really? What was her reaction to it?
The day after it came out, she called me on FaceTime and she read it in like 24 hours. And I was like, oh my God. And she said, she started crying and she said, I'm so proud of you. And she said, it's so great. And then she said, and some of the things you've done, I've done too. And it was it was such a healing moment. Wow. My husband was next to me and he started crying. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, thanks, Mom. And I got off the phone, like I had no reaction. Yeah. And I was like, I just hysterically started bawling. So just that moment to like have that bonding moment with my mom, and she really saw me. And she said one other thing. She said, for the first time in 10 years, I understand your addiction completely. So it was a beautiful moment.
Wow.
And I'm really glad I wrote the book.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it was a very beautiful moment.
So I mean, again, I'm just so grateful that you've spent this time with us because, I mean, of course, I have my own assignment to work on, but whatever.
You do. You have your tools now. You can always join a sexual anorexia medium with me too.
But no,
I have the information. It's Thursday night. It's tonight. Just so you know.
Shut the front door. Oh my gosh. I have a
seat. I'll have a seat there for you. I'll warm it for you. I'll keep it when you're ready.
No, I know I should. Honestly, we should probably talk about this when the recording shut off.
Yeah.
But Jen, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
That you want to ask?
Any that are appropriate for.
We don't want to hold her hostage.
Not that wouldn't air anything.
And
thank you.
No, I think we've.
Oh wait, I do have one more question. Oh, sorry. You're working on a second book?
Yes, book 2, Roxanne, Sober Dating. I'm rewriting right now. Yeah, it's like her next 10 rules she lives by and how to sober date in a healthy way.
Yeah, now it could become a series.
Yeah, so actually there was 3 books. There's a third book that I have it outlined. The second book's already written. It's just in rewrites
wow.
right now. But the third book, and then my husband turned to me like a couple months ago and he's like, there's a fourth book. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
You're like,
Leave
bitch,
me alone.
hop off, man. I didn't even want to do the first one.
I know. And then he explained it to me and I was like, oh, you're right. Ugh. So yeah, it's a 4-book series. So we'll see. But this next one I'm really proud of because I think it will even resonate more because it's about the dating world and not just sober dating as a sex and love addict, but what we learn can be anybody could take it and have a better dating experience.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you
I
for sharing that
I
information.
really
So you
admire
don't have a
that
release
you
date yet?
wrote the books yourself and I and didn't use a ghostwriter. And that how you said that it wouldn't be yours if you did. I do because
Thank you.
that's a lot to undertake.
Yeah, I got offered.
Yeah.
I got offered to do it. Yeah, it was. And the editor I used was really kind and gentle and never made me feel, if I put the wrong punctuation
Yeah.
or so I just really had someone around me that was really gentle and just like showed me different. And she said, you're breaking a lot of rules with this book, but it's actually okay.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you
Mhm.
want. And I said, oh my God, thank you. So her allowing me to write it how I speak instead of like how books are written
Right.
really helped me just like go, okay, I'm just going to do it all. Like I'll just do it and see how
Yeah.
it goes. But thank you for saying
Will you
that.
come
That really
back when
means
your
a lot.
second book comes out or another time?
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course.
Do you
Yes.
have an estimated release date for your second book by any chance? Or
Oh my
you had
God.
missed
I
it?
don't know. Probably next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
Probably the end of next year. Yeah, they were trying to give me a deadline like at the beginning of next year. And I was like, I
You're like,
can't
leave
wait.
a
I can't
message.
commit
You're
to that
looking
right
and
now.
doing this.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Oh my God.
Well, thank you so much.
But you've been an absolute
Yes.
pleasure.
Thank you guys. It's so wonderful to get to know you and just break bread and just put it all out there. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful.
I do want people to be more open to this subject and understand that it impacts women as much as
Yeah.
it does men.
Yes, it does. And the love addiction really impacts a lot of men too. People don't talk about that. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been
It
a
has been.
pleasure, and I truly appreciate you
And we're going to
sharing.
put all of your links.
Thank you
Thanks,
so,
We're going to put
so
all
guys.
of your
much.
links in the show notes as well. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll message you on Instagram.
Okay. See you in
All
the
right.
meetings.
All right,
Take care.
bye.
Bye, guys.
Slam dunk, are you ready?